In the silent forest of ancient times, where the leaves whispered tales of transience, lived a sage in a small stone cave. He was gentle, wise, and devoted his days entirely to meditation and the granting of unconditional compassion. His presence was like a healing underground spring, quietly nourishing life. The outside world was full of harshness, but inside his cave there was only absolute serenity. This serenity was suddenly shattered one twilight evening when a tiny trembling creature fell from the talons of a young mouse, injured and so terrified it was barely breathing. Its life was a fragile thread suspended between the harsh cruelty of nature and the sage's boundless kindness. The sage gently took the tiny creature, brought it into the cave, soothed its wounds, and offered it warming grains of sustenance. From that moment, the mouse began a new life under infinite protection. It was nurtured, gradually grew strong and plump, forgetting the days spent hiding in fear. But physical health does not equate to peace of mind. A brutal truth we often overlook is this: no matter how much we improve our environment, the primal fear lies dormant, waiting for a chance to erupt. One day, a wildcat discovered the plump mouse near the cave entrance. Hunting instinct surged, and the mouse once again plunged into sheer terror. It ran for its life, hiding behind the sage's robe, pleading for salvation. The sage drove the cat away, but his heart felt heavy. He saw the chronic fear tightly gripping this small being. He understood the cat would return, and he could not forever be a wall of defense. Instead of driving away the external threat, the sage decided to change the nature of the threatened creature. Using his divine power, he transformed the mouse into a cat. This was the first metamorphosis in a chain of dizzying changes, carrying a profound lesson about the limits of identity. The cat, formerly the mouse, now roamed the forest freely, no longer fearing its former enemy's kin. It felt strong, respected, but this joy was only a thin veneer. Soon enough, a ferocious wild dog appeared. Survival instinct took over, and the cat once again fled back to the cave, hiding and pleading. The sage, with his limitless compassion, transformed the cat into a dog. These repeated changes are akin to our constantly shifting jobs, partners, environments, or even appearances, believing that external change will mend the internal gaps. In reality, we are only changing our armor. When the dog, formerly the mouse, wandered without fear of minor predators, it believed it had attained freedom. But then, the imposing shadow of a tiger emerged. The fear, wrapped in so many protective layers, erupted again with paralyzing terror, sending the dog sprinting back to the cave for protection. The third transformation, from dog to tiger, elevated this creature to the apex of the food chain. The tiger, once the mouse, was now the lord of the forest. Every creature feared it, respecting its absolute power and might. It moved freely. No shadow of an enemy could threaten its existence. The external shell had achieved the perfection of power, of ultimate supremacy. But had true freedom arrived? We often mistake success, fame, or power for the antidote to insecurity. We build thrones of pure gold, hoping the external brilliance will banish the inner darkness. But the story reveals that true fear does not lie in the enemy we see, but in the nature we constantly try to deny. The final and most radical change came when the tiger encountered a hunter. A jarring gunshot echoed, and the lord of the mountain's power suddenly became meaningless. This predator carried a different kind of strength, a superior intellect. The tiger, despite all its majesty, recoiled, running back to the cave, sobbing and pleading for its life. The sage, seeing the tiger's terror reach the highest degree of helplessness, decided to grant this being the ultimate gift. He transformed it into a human. As a human, the former mouse had achieved the pinnacle of existence: intellect, constructive ability, and communal power. He felt absolute bliss, respected, and completely free. He began to integrate into village life, dreaming of a peaceful home and family. He had everything: power, reputation, and the form of the superior creature. But it was precisely at this moment that the new seeds of destruction began to sprout, silently and venomously. The first thought was a tiny anxiety. I was once a mouse. Only the sage knows this truth. If he reveals it, everyone will mock me. This respect will vanish. This was the decisive psychological moment where the primal fear, the fear of exposed weakness, was distorted into envy and hatred. The fear of losing his new identity made him forget the gratitude and compassion of the one who created him. He no longer saw the sage as a benefactor, but as a perpetual threat, a living book containing the truth he wanted buried. If I destroy the sage, the dark thought whispered, then no one will ever know who I was. I will be safe forever. Fear created the need for absolute control, and the need for control led to the intent to murder. The human mind, if left unchecked, can turn gratitude into betrayal and life into death. He picked up a sharp tool and walked toward the stone cave, his face etched with cruel determination. This story is not just an allegory of greed or ingratitude, but a profound study of how the mind operates. A negative seed, fear, envy, or insecurity, if not uprooted, will drain all positive sustenance and grow into a toxic tree named destruction. His hatred was not aimed at the sage, but at his own shadow, the shadow of the young mouse he desperately wanted to erase from memory. But as he stepped into the entrance of the cave, the sage saw through everything. He needed no words. He saw the turmoil, the rage, and the dark intent consuming the man's heart. He saw the entire trajectory of error, from fear becoming concealment, from concealment becoming resistance, and finally, self-destruction. Before the man could act, the sage chanted a mantra, and instantly, the powerful human transformed back into a tiny, trembling young mouse. A horrifying shriek erupted, not the squeak of a mouse, but the cry of the naked ego, of collapsed identity. The mouse fled the stone cave and never dared to return. Its greatest loss was not the form of the human, the tiger, or the dog, but the loss of gratitude and inner peace. It had been granted everything to become strong and free, but one dark thought stripped it of everything. The deepest lesson from this story is about the ultimate power of the mind. Our lives are shaped not by the external events that occur, but by how we react to and process the thoughts within. The mouse had the chance to live as a cat, a dog, a tiger, and a human, all identities craved by society, but it lost everything simply because of one moment where fear controlled its actions. Great success or catastrophic failure begins in the mind. If we allow a small negative thought, such as envy, comparison, or the fear of judgment, to flourish, it will quickly shape how we view the world, influencing every choice we make until it becomes action and ultimately destiny. Our mind is like a garden. If we plant and nurture seeds of gratitude, compassion, and acceptance, we will harvest peace. But if we allow the weeds of fear and hatred to grow, they will choke every flower of happiness. In today's world, where the pressure for success and social comparison are relentless, our minds are more chaotic than ever. We often seek safety and self-worth by changing external identities. A new job, a new relationship, a new asset. But this story reminds us that mastering the mind is the only path to true freedom. If you can master your thoughts, you can shape your future. If you ignore them, then whether you are the lord of the jungle or a revered mortal, a single negative thought can destroy the entire empire you painstakingly built. Be the sage, not the mouse. Become the guardian of your own mind, so that gratitude and acceptance are always the guiding lighthouses on your journey toward true peace and liberation.